My dear friends in Christ, on this 19th Sunday in Ordinary Time, I'd like to reflect on the theme, What are you doing here? Come out of the cave. What are you doing here? Come out of the cave. Or what are you doing there? Come out of the cave. This in itself is a complete message, and God is addressing these words to us this morning. What are you doing here? What are you doing there? Come out of the cave. In the first reading of today from the first book of Kings 19:9 to 13, we meet Elijah at one of the lowest moments of his life. It is quite surprising because only one chapter earlier he has stood courageously, fearlessly, and boldly on Mount Carmel before hundreds of prophets of Baal, whom he neutralized by the power of God. There, he trusted God completely and invoked the plenitude of divine authority and power, and God answered him with fire from heaven. Now, we see that Elijah cowering in the face of distress. Everything changed when Jezebel threatened to kill him. There are people who go through one experience and their lives never remain the same. Please don't let that experience define your entire existence. Come out of that cave. The fearless prophet suddenly became afraid and, if you like, traumatized. The text tells us he was afraid and he arose and ran for his life. Elijah, whose name means my God is Yahweh, my God is the Lord. He has the double name of God, which means he carries the double authority and power of God in his name. Fear changed his mindset and the direction of his life. His immediate experience impacted his faith. His present condition has affected his trust in God. And many people are in this state. The prophet who had stood boldly before kings and queens is now running for his life. He ran into the wilderness, sat under a broom tree, prayed that he might die. Obviously, he's now depressed. He journeyed to Mount Horeb, entered a cave, and remained there. Underline that phrase, remained there. The cave was indeed a real physical geographical place and space, but it was also a picture of what was happening inside Elijah, what was happening to his life, his inner condition. He has entered a space, a liminal space of oppression. The Hebrew text says that he lodged there. The Hebrew word lin means to remain, to spend the night, to linger in that place, to stay there. It was his dark night of the soul. So geographically, externally, Elijah lodged in the cave. Mentally and spiritually, fear had begun to lodge in Elijah. And Elijah had begun to lodge in his fear. The fear has become his cave. He's developed a cave mentality. He's now caved in on himself. Covatus inse. Caved in on oneself. The cave became more than a shelter. It has become a state of mind, a mentality, a point of view, a perception. Then God asked him, what are you doing here, Elijah? Of course, God was not asking because he did not know Elijah's physical location. God is omniscient. God knows exactly where Elijah was. The question was deeper than geography. It was about Elijah's mental health, mental condition, spiritual state, and wounded heart. Elijah, as if God was saying, Elijah, how did you get here? What has happened inside you? How did the courageous prophet who stood before Ahab end up hiding in a cave? How did a fiery man of God, a prayer warrior, a miracle-working prophet who had just called down fire from heaven suddenly cower before Jezebel, suddenly concede ground before a wicked queen, suddenly capitulate and surrender before a mortal creature? This is not the first time God asked such a question in the Bible. If you recall, when Adam sinned, God asked, where are you? God knew where Adam was. He knew he was hiding. The question was about Adam's relationship with God. Adam had moved from a place of intimacy to fear, trusting the devil than God, from obedience to disobedience, from, if you like, freedom to bondage. He's now hiding. When Cain murdered Abel, God asked, where is your brother? God knew Abel was dead. The question exposed Cain's hardened heart and refusal to take accountability and responsibility for his action. When Jonah became angry because God showed mercy to the sinful Nineveh, God asked, "Why are you angry?" God knew Jonah was angry. The question exposed a heart that preferred judgment to mercy, condemnation to forgiveness. In every case, God was not looking for more information. He was inviting them to examine the condition of their hearts. God is saying the same thing to you today. The same is true of Elijah. Where are you? God said to Elijah, "What are you doing here?" This is really another way of saying, what has happened to my prophet? There are places we enter with our feet, but there are also places we enter with our minds and our hearts. Fear can become a cave. Worry can become a cave where negatives develop. Disappointment can become a cave. Grief, rejection, anxiety, shame, resentment, even pride or failure or even exhaustion can become caves in which we begin to live. We remain in those places. So the problem is not that we sometimes enter this cave mentality. Every one of us at one point or the other we experience fear, disappointment, or moments of weakness or bad experiences. The real danger is staying there. Laying, that word means to lodge. Lodging there, like entering a hotel, getting into an inn. You are in your inn. A temporary experience slowly becomes a permanent way of thinking, a mindset, a perception, a way of life. Okay, I felt rejected by someone. I now think I'm worthless. You see, my business failed. That means nothing will ever work for me. This is how it progresses. Someone hurt me, then I will never trust anyone anymore. No. Before long, if you're not careful, you're no longer passing through these little moments. We live in them. Even if the experience is debilitating and strong, don't let the cave become your home. And that's why God's next words to the prophet is, go out and stand on the mountain before God. Come into the presence of God. Bring that problem there. God meets Elijah in the cave, but refuses to leave him in the cave. God says, I will bring you out. Maybe the cave is the bondage holding him down, but what did God say? Come out. And Jesus said to Lazarus to come out of the cave, of the grave. Come out. The tomb had become kind of womb for rebirth. Let that experience become a womb for you to be reborn. Come out. Fear says your story is over. God is saying, I'm still working. As long as God is not done working, we're not done waiting on the Lord. So Elijah's liberation and deliverance and healing began the moment he stepped out of the cave and stood once again in the presence of God. That is what resurrection is, to stand again. Anistemi, to be made to stand again. The gospel presents us with another man facing another kind of cave. Peter is not hiding in a cave on a mountain. He's surrounded by a storm at the sea. Both stories are really about the same struggle. Maybe we can find our own story in these stories. Peter steps out of the boat and begins to walk towards Jesus. And the gospel says, when he saw the wind, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, he cried out, Lord, save me. Thank God he knows what to do, because it's not that he sank. As he began to sink, he cried out, Lord, save me. The storm had been there all along. What changed was Peter's focus, his gaze. His eyes moved from Jesus to the storm, to the wind. Don't take your eyes away from Jesus. Elijah heard Jezebel's threat and ran. What is that thing that you have seen or experienced? Because the verb to see also has a sense of experience, encounter. What is that thing you have seen? Peter saw the wind and began to sink. In both stories, fear became greater than their faith, because the problem became bigger in their minds than the God who had called them. My dear friends, in both stories, God comes towards the frightened person, the troubled person, the traumatized person. God comes towards Elijah in the cave. Jesus walks towards Peter on the water. Elijah's hiding in the cave, nor Peter's sinking beneath the waves, became the end of the narrative. As you can see, God meets Elijah in the cave, but he calls him out. Jesus meets Peter in the storm, but he lifts him up and out of the storm. So my brothers and sisters, today the Lord asks each of us the same question he asked Elijah. What are you doing here? What are you doing there? Perhaps your cave is not made of rock. Perhaps it is made of worry, as I said, fear, disappointment, anxiety, addiction, or hopelessness. Whatever that cave is, just as God called Elijah out of the cave and Jesus lifted Peter above the waves, the Lord is calling you today. Come out, come out, come out. I wish to examine a few caves, at least 5 caves that we live in without even realizing that we're living in these caves. The first is the cave of worry. Many people live there every day of their lives. From morning till night, they are calculating, how will I pay my rent? How will I pay the school fees of my children? How will I feed my family? These are legitimate questions. Will this business survive? Will I still have a job next month? What will happen to me? Even when they're in church, their body is present, but their mind is full of worry. They cannot sleep well because tomorrow has become a burden. To everyone living in these kinds of caves, God is saying, what are you doing here? What are you doing there? Come out. Worry is just passing by. It's a visitor. Do not make it your permanent home. Like Peter, you have been looking at the waves for too long. You have been looking at the storms for too long. Lift your eyes again toward Jesus. The hand that held Peter is strong enough to hold you as well. Second, the cave of fear. Some people are no longer living by faith. They are living by fear, literally. Every phone call makes them panic. They wake up with a start. Every medical test frightens them. Every piece of bad news they read or hear makes them think they will be next. No, don't do that to yourself. So they become afraid. They're afraid to start a business. They're afraid to marry. They're afraid to apply for a new job. They're afraid to ask for help or to take a step or leap of faith because they think the result will be even worse. Fear has become their master. This cannot happen to you. God is asking you, what are you doing there? What are you doing here? Come out. Peter did not sink because Jesus left him. He sank because he took his eyes off Jesus. Christ says to every fearful heart today, take courage, it is I, do not be afraid. Third, the cave of delay and discouragement. Some have prayers that they have made for years, so they have legitimate reason to be discouraged. They are still waiting for a child, a spouse, a job, or a breakthrough, or healing. They have almost stopped expecting anything. They still come to church, but their hope is gradually disappearing. And they have begun to think, maybe God has forgotten me, as if they are sinking beneath the waves. They are allowing their storm to swallow them. God is asking, what are you doing in that kind of mindset? Come out. Elijah thought everything was over, but God still had another mission for him. Do not allow your delay, as we say, to become a denial. The same Jesus who came to Peter in the middle of the storm has not forgotten and will not forget you. His timing is always perfect. This is hard, but I assure you his timing is perfect. The fourth is the cave of bondage. Some people are trapped by habits they cannot seem to break free from. Others are imprisoned by anger, bitterness, unforgiveness, envy, jealousy, pornography, alcohol, gambling, or secret sins that nobody knows about. Some are entrapped in some kind of spiritual bondage or even secret cults, things holding them down. They have fought for years, now they believe they cannot get out. They have accepted the prison as normal. It's not normal. God is saying, what are you doing there? What are you doing here? Come out. The same Jesus who stretched out his hand and lifted Peter from the water is still stretching out his hand today and is calling out to you to come out. Know that no chain is stronger than the grace of God. The fifth, and perhaps the last, is the cave of defeat. This may be the deepest cave of all. Some people wake up every morning already feeling defeated. They are saying to themselves, no good can ever come my way. Nothing good comes to my family. Nothing will change in my life. The problem will never end. Yes, they are alive, but they have stopped believing. Their greatest battle is no longer external. It is now internal. It's a mindset. It's inside them. They've accepted defeat as their identity, if you like. God is speaking to that cave. He's saying, you come out. He's saying to you, what are you doing there? Come out of this mindset. Come out of the defeated mindset. Stop looking at the storm. Look at Jesus. The one who called Elijah out of the cave and lifted Peter above the wave is still calling you today. Come out. I'm not finished with you, and God is not finished with us. So my dear brothers and sisters, in conclusion, I want to say to you, the Lord is still asking this question of us. What are you doing here? If you are living in a cave of worry, of fear, of anxiety, of discouragement, of bondage, or defeat, or any cave that I have not mentioned, come out. In the first reading, God was not where Elijah expected him to be. He was not in the mighty wind, not in the earthquake or in the fire, but in the gentle whisper. In the gospel, the disciples thought Jesus was absent because of the storm, yet he was there all along, walking towards them and saying, take courage, it is I, do not be afraid. God is walking towards you even in your storm. It is saying, I'm coming, do not be afraid. Sometimes we look for God where He is not, or fail to recognize Him where He really is. We are not alone, He's with us. And that's what the responsorial psalm says. We should look out for that voice of God, even in our storm. And we hear what God has to say. For His voice is voice of peace to His people. So stop hearing negative voices and whispers of the accuser. Look out for the voice of God. That's what the responsorial psalm says. So above every storm, above every fear, above every worry, listen out to the voice of God. His voice is a voice that speaks peace. So I pray this morning that God will set us free, will grant you liberation and freedom and joy. And as He's asking you today, what are you doing there? You will listen to His voice saying to you, come out of the cave. Amen.